Okay, we are streaming on Facebook Live for Spotlight Sunday, and we're here with Meghann Farrell, and I'm super excited because Meghann, you're one of the first people I've had on for Spotlight Sunday that I don't actually like have a personal relationship with. I don't know you as well, but I'm super excited about that. Like, I love getting to know everybody in the group, and this is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited. So
Awesome.
before we dive in, I would love it if you would just kind of take over and introduce yourself and tell us about you and your business and how you got started.
Sure. So I'm actually just at the beginning stages, registered my LLC, going through all that. But my name is Meghann Farrell, and my company is Mind Over Meltdown. My husband and I are going to be launching a podcast next month, and we are very excited about that.
Fun.
The general gist behind what we do and what we're excited about is parenting, but parenting with a focus on doing your own thing and not being worried about what everyone else is doing, just really trying to find the balance and find what works for you and your family, and particularly with preteens and teens, helping parents come together and connect with their preteens and teens and just in the groove. So
that sounds awesome. So how did you get started into this new business? What made you want to start?
So we are parents, first of all, but basically several years ago, we kind of came to the conclusion that we were reading all these blogs and books, and while everything out there we found has been helpful, there's not a lot out there about adapting all of those parenting theories and mindsets to your own life and finding what works for you, like I said. So we just kind of wanted to fill that gap and be mediators for parents, helping them to dissect the information out there and kind of find a way to adapt it to their own families. And we're a little bit irreverent and not the normal parenting strategies. So I feel like there's also room in the market for that.
Yeah.
Finding a different way to do things.
I love it. That's awesome. And that's right up my alley, of course, too. Break all the rules.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to get this pulled up real quick so I can see comments and everything. For everyone that's new to the group, please know that I love comments. Let me know if you're here. Always say hi. Same thing goes if you're watching the replay. Let us know that you're here and let us know if you have any questions along the way. So before we dive into what you're going to be teaching us today about perfectionism and all of that fun stuff, I always have to ask everybody about their definition of branding. So what do you feel like branding means for you in your business?
I think just the general definition, I feel like branding is like what my company would be if it were a friend sitting next to me talking to me. So
ooh, I love that.
How that kind of takes human form, more or less, personification of my company. And it means a lot to my business. Personally, I just feel like that is the way that we communicate what's different about us and what makes our methodology different and unique.
I love it. I've never heard anyone word it that way, but that's so true. Like your best friend sitting next to you. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. A+.
Yay. Perfectionist. So that's
perfectionist. Yes. Okay. Well, that's a perfect transition into what we want to talk about today then. So your little description you sent over talks about indecision and confidence and perfectionism. So I'm super excited to dive in because everybody deals with this stuff, even if they don't admit it. But the perfectionism, especially me, that's like one of my things I talk about a lot. So I'm super excited to hear. So
I feel like a lot of creatives actually, even though it doesn't necessarily make sense because you think of creatives being like covered in paints and like, messy and stuff. But my husband's an audio engineer, bands for years, and in all of the things that he creates, I see the perfectionism for his own world, and same thing for me in everything that I do.
Yeah.
I'm a super creative person, and that's just kind of been a part of my world. So one of the things that I feel like I've learned recently, and as we were talking about kind of before we went live, this is a daily struggle. This is not anything that I could say I'm an expert in or that I have mastered 100%. But I've definitely come to a mind shift recently regarding perfectionism in realizing that it is a form of fear. And I hadn't really thought about that before, and kind of what fear does to us in business and in life, and how it can force us to freeze and not
not do anything at all.
do anything because we're afraid of judgment, or we're afraid of failure. That's a huge one for me. I started another business a couple years ago, and in that, I feel like I failed, but looking back at that experience, I realized that the reason I failed is because I kind of didn't try. I was so afraid to fail that I really created a self-fulfilling prophecy there. So, just with fear, if we think about what fear is in kind of a mechanism that our brain uses to try to protect us from something, and then we think about what it's trying to protect us from. In this case, like we said, judgment or failure or whatever.
Millions of things.
And it's different for each person, but when we think about that and kind of take a step back and ask whether it's really accomplishing the goal, if it's protecting us from failure, that's the mind shift I was able to have in realizing it was fear, that my brain is protecting me from something, but in the end, like I said, it's creating that very thing that it's trying to protect me from. So, so that's just a really big shift.
Definitely.
And the other thing about fear that I feel like is important is realizing that fear is worrying about the future. It's worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, is not an immediate threat necessarily. I mean, in the case of perfectionism, it's not. And so when we approach it in that way and recognize that we're worrying about something that hasn't even happened, then it does kind of force us to take a step back and look at things in a slightly different way. So
I love it. That's awesome. That just this huge shift like that is super important, because you're so right. Like, and I feel like perfectionism too, it shows up different ways for different people. And that's because the fear is probably different for the different people, right? Like for me, it's the fear of failure thing. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put something out there and everyone's going to think it's stupid and there's going to be this one little mistake or something. And that's kind of always been there. But I feel like, depending on what that fear is, it can show up in different ways. So like procrastination, you kind of talked about that a little bit, just not doing anything. That's a form of perfectionism that leads back to that fear. So just recognizing, all of those different ways that it shows up and how it affects you, even if you don't call it perfectionism, it's still an issue, right? And that we need to address. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that sometimes we think that, or when you picture perfectionism, I think a lot of times people just picture that type A, like has to get straight A's and has to follow all the rules and all of that stuff. And I've never really identified with that. Personally, like I am a rule follower. in some ways, like probably out of laziness, just because I want somebody else to tell me how I need to do things and how I can accomplish the things that I want to, but when I really look at the perfectionism in my life, it absolutely, like you said, it's these different reactions to my situation out of fear that are causing that. And when I take a step back and look at it as if I'm not dealing with myself, like how I would advise a friend or something like that, then I really do see that the fear is that I'm going to put something out there and it's not going to go exactly how I planned it, or somebody's going to judge it for what it is.
I love what you just said, like what you would tell a friend, because that's like the number one way that I have learned how to like deal with it too. Because aside from, you know, all of this other stuff we're talking about, like anxiety is like huge for me too. Like I imagine a worst case scenario, like, as you know, the worst thing that could possibly happen, that's what pops into my brain. So how you worded that was like spot on, because that's exactly what I try to like think through when that's happening. Like, okay, if my best friend was sitting here telling me all these crazy things that are going through my head, I'd be like, dude, no, that's ridiculous. Like, just do the thing.
Okay. Yeah,
you're fine.
Yeah, and
that's a really good way to look at it. So I love that you said that, because I never really hear people say that, you know, in all of the books that talk about this stuff. So I think I love it. I love that you said that.
Yeah, someone also said recently, and I'm going to slaughter this, and I honestly can't remember who said it, but they were talking about like that fear of failure, and saying that the only surefire way, the only 100% chance that you are going to fail is if you don't start. And that hit me. I was like, okay, like I understand that. I've been procrastinating this dream that I've had for so long because I, you know, insert application here or there, but the only way I'm going to fail is if I don't do anything.
Absolutely.
Sure, there's a chance that it still could in the future, but it's not 100% in that case.
Absolutely. And there are so many, you know, quotes that talk about that stuff too. The one that comes to my mind is the hockey, Wayne Gretzky, the you miss 100% of the shots that you stuff like that. That's like, it's so true though. Like, yeah, you might fail, but you're definitely not going to get there if you don't try. So I love it. I love that you're like starting this new business anyway, and just doing it anyway, and just freaking do it. People ask me a lot, like, if I had advice for, you know, just starting a new business or how to just do it. And that's it. Just stop thinking about it and just do it. Because like I said, that's exactly what I did. I sat in my cube for 5 years making spreadsheets and researching a million different things. And I was super prepared when I finally did it, but I could have done it 4 years earlier and been fine. So like, just freaking do it.
Yeah. Perfectly worded. I mean,
just freaking do it.
My husband and I, have been talking about this for years and wanting to do a podcast, and we're like, who wants to listen to our voices? Like, you know,
I'll listen to it.
All of the things in your head going nonstop, and I'm like, I can't even leave a voicemail. You know, if I have to record my outgoing message for my work phone, it takes me an hour because I don't like the sound of my own voice. And so, like, this is a terrible idea. And then we actually recorded our first couple episodes, and listening back to them, I was like, I would listen to this. I would listen to me. And that sounds maybe a little bit conceited, but I'm going for confidence.
I love it. Like, okay, this was all in my head. It's not really that's not really the truth.
Yeah, like all of those tiny fears that we let creep in, that build up and force us into that expectation of perfection is kind of the other aspect of this that I had wanted to talk about. Was just I think that one of the biggest issues that I have faced personally, and I know a ton of other people face, is that we're comparing like our starting point, our beginning, to someone else's highlight reel after 10 years of experience. And I think letting go of that, while extremely difficult, is key. And just understanding that everyone has to start somewhere, and that everything that we put out into the world doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes.
And one of the things that's really helped in that regard is kind of looking at friendships again. And personally, I really like to have authentic friendships where I can be myself and not
I would rather have two real friends.
Yes, exactly. And if you think about the differences between those authentic, like real friendships and the fake superficial ones, it really comes down to just like saying things the way that you would say them, and not trying to be perfect, because I think that when we try to be perfect, a lot of the time we come off like robotic almost, like it's this computer version of a real human, and no one can connect to that. I think we connect over our imperfections. And so just as important as that is to me in friendship, I need to kind of take that and apply that to my business, and recognize that I have to be seen as human in order to connect with potential clients.
And that just ties back to branding so perfectly. I love it, because that's so true. And I think a lot, like, people especially struggle with that starting new businesses. I think when you come from corporate, like I did, and like a lot of people do, like if you haven't always been an entrepreneur, it's easier. Or if you have been an entrepreneur, it's easier. But, you know, you get stuck in that I have to be perfect because that's how corporations are run. Like it translates over, and it takes a long time to get out of that. But that's so true. And that goes back to your definition of branding too, like the personification of your business. Treat it like it's a person. Like, just be yourself. That's really the whole answer. Just be your thing.
Just be you. I've definitely experienced that corporate perfectionism. I've worked in a law firm for the last 10 years. And so since everything is just very, you know, the expectation is that you are within the lines. They color the box, and you just stay right there. And there's no real room for innovation or creation or any personality at all. So taking that shift, I imagine, from, I mean, maybe even not corporate, but working for other people in general, and trying to create that box for yourself.
It's hard.
It's based on
I think it just keeps a lot of people stuck. But I'm so glad. I love hearing that breakthrough moment where like, oh my gosh, I can just be me, and that's all I have to do. It's so great.
So that's basically it. I guess one of the big things, Rachel Hollis has a quote that kind of sums it all up, but she said, pretty good is better than trying to fake perfection any day. And that hit me. Like, as long as I can just be myself and do my best, like that, someone will see that human nature to my company. Someone will connect with that and understand kind of where I'm coming from. And and I don't, like, being perfect isn't going to like allow that connection. Being perfect is going to cause me to freeze and be immobile in everything.
And sad.
Sad. and and not real, because no matter how much I try, like you were talking about, I've researched this for years and tried to, you know, do it right, but there's a difference between doing it right and doing it perfectly. So what's right for me is not perfect.
I love it. I feel like our archetypes are probably pretty similar based on this conversation. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Like I you know, I love talking about this stuff. If you've been around me for 2 minutes, you know that. So it's so important. So thank you for coming in and, you know, sharing your perspective and how you've gotten past all this crap that tends to hold people back, but you're like powering through it. I love it. I love it. So, since you've just started and you don't have anything to share yet, I would love it if, like, once your podcast, you know, is launched and everything, if you want to come back in and share it with us. Normally we have like a freebie or a giveaway or something. Or if you do have something you want to share now, that's totally awesome too. Otherwise, let's come back and get that link, because I want to hear that podcast.
Totally. Yes, we will definitely let you know when it is launched, and we will have a freebie to go along with one of our first episodes. So
awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it. And thank you so much for coming in. This has been super fun.
All right.
All right. Bye, Meghann. Bye. Everyone have a great night, and we will see you soon.